So there is two key advantages of international trade, of trading freely. One is absolute advantage. Now, absolute advantage is simply having an advantage over another country for production. Maybe one country is more efficient, or maybe one country has the specific raw material like oil or rare earths and another country doesn't. An example, a practical example, if I can make 5 pizzas in an hour and my friend can make 4 pizzas in an hour, I have an absolute advantage over my friend in making pizza. Now, comparative advantage is different. Comparative advantage is when two countries are able to produce two different products or services, and one country has an absolute advantage in both, yet it's still advantageous for both countries to focus on producing the different products and trading. I'll give you another example. Let's say if I can produce 5 pizzas and my friend can produce 4 pizzas an hour, but also I can pour 3 drinks and my friend can only pour 2 drinks an hour. I'm better at both activities, yet it's better for me to focus on pouring the drinks where my friend has the least advantage, is least able, and my friend can focus on making the pizza. So in this way, in an hour, we will produce more pizzas and pour more drinks as a total, and then we can trade. Now, this sounds complex as I explain it linguistically, but we'll do it as an exercise in the class, and you should be able to understand it better as an exercise. Okay, so what are the gains from trade? Why do we trade and not protect ourselves? We can protect ourselves with different instruments like tariffs, which are taxes on imports. That will stop imports or slow imports, or embargoes, or quotas. Quotas are saying basically we want 1,000 containers of clothes from China, and over that we don't want it. And a few other instruments to protect ourselves from the competition. But one advantage from not protecting ourselves, so the gains from trade, are we can specialise. So we all specialise as parts of the economy. You've got Britain specialising in finance, America specialising in aeroplanes and technologies, Italy in lifestyle, Japan in robotics. And by specialising, we can really build and develop know-how. For example, in quite a few years ago, 20 years ago, Turin was very specialised in car manufacturing because of Fiat. And so all the different parts of Turin were focused on developing competencies in for the car industry. For example, teaching English. We would teach English by teaching the lexicon of the car industry, or maybe translating. We would translate car manuals, or marketers would focus on marketing cars and lawyers on the law to do with car production, etc. So, you know, you can really specialize if we trade. It ends up we can really go deeply and get very good at a specific competence. It also increases our choice by exporting or importing. We can have lots and lots of incredible ideas. You go to the supermarket and you see all the products possible. You know, sushi. Could an Italian have invented sushi? No. You know, it was a Japanese invention. And then you've got all the different types of foods from all over the world, all very different. And this increases consumer choice. Free trade means competition. And normally that makes us very, very good. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. And by companies competing internationally, they will have to get good. You know, you see all these runners racing ahead, and if someone really goes fast and, you know, beats everyone else, all the other runners are going to be looking and thinking, like, what's their diet and what's their training, and they'll be looking into, you know, why this happened, and they will try to imitate any good practice. By not having free trade, often we stop a company from evolving and improving. Free trade means we will continually improve because the competition will really force us to. It will create business opportunities. Here we can see a fair for foreign products to be imported, and all these foreign products will need Italian marketers, maybe Italian lawyers to explain the law in Italy and what they can do, maybe agents to sell and agents who have contacts in Italy. So it will, by trading, it will naturally create opportunities for Italians. Just the fact that even we are importing, not just exporting, but even importing means that we do need translators, lawyers, marketers, agents, etc. Another gain from trade is that firms can specialise or go to where countries specialise. So if we're making a car, for example, we could go to Italy for the design. We know Italy specialises in design, and then also to Japan, where they have a competence in robotics. So we can utilise, firms can utilise all these diversities in the world and all these specialisations. This is very important. You know, by trading freely, we will create contacts and relationships. We will have to connect and collaborate. And that will mean opening our minds and understanding different cultures, forming relationships and social bonds with different cultures, and also dependencies on different cultures. So this all makes it less likely to go to war. If China is very dependent on Japanese investment, and Japan is very dependent on Chinese rare earths for their technologies, obviously if they go to war they are hurting themselves, because China will no longer get investment and Japan will no longer get the rare earths that they really need. Also, all the contacts they've made will be very damaged, and they won't be able to, the governments won't be able to create demons of the other, because many citizens, many businesses will know very well the other people and how they are and who they are, and put a real face on that culture. So I think, this international trade really helps global peace by integration, helping us to integrate and work together. There are disadvantages of uncontrolled trade, so we do need to control trade in certain circumstances. For example, if you have an infant industry, that means if your industry is not fully developed. Here we can see on the left, we can see the Indian car manufacturers isn't so developed. You've got Tesla on the right, where they're using robots, not workers. And obviously India cannot compete with Tesla. So they need to protect their industry so their industry can grow and become fully matured. That may mean putting quotas or tariffs on the American car manufacturers, just to keep their industry, able to continue and keep growing and become competitive with Tesla. So that's a very good reason. Another good reason to control international trade inhibit international trade is to stop the exploitation of both workers and the environment. You've got lots of multinationals looking for cheap workers and looking for the possibility to abuse the environment so they don't have to pay to protect the environment. In America, maybe the companies would be regulated and would be forced to do things that are very costly to protect the environment. In India, they can say, we don't want to do that, otherwise we will leave. And so the Indians are maybe a bit more open to damage, unless they decide to restrict international trade through tariffs, quotas, embargoes, or whatever. Another problem with uncontrolled international trade is the inequality. We do find the more open the markets, the more those with the advantages can really benefit much more than those without the skills and the position, the leverage, the strengths. They're able to be abused a little bit, and the rich will become richer and the poor become poorer. But this isn't always the case. It can happen. For example, China was a poor country, yet it got rich, but they were very strong in terms of unity.